I should have driven past him. I think about that every single day now, lying here in this hospital bed, staring at fluorescent lights that buzz like dying insects. I should have kept my foot on the gas and my eyes straight ahead, but I didn't. And now I'm trying to make sense of what happened on that stretch of Highway 17, on a night when the rain fell so hard it felt like the world was drowning. It started with this posture. That's what caught my attention first. Most hitchhikers, they lean forward, right? They stick out their thumb. They make themselves visible. They try to look desperate or friendly or harmless. This man did none of that. He stood perfectly still on the shoulder of the road, about 30 feet from the guardrail, his arms hanging at his sides like he was waiting for a bus that had been scheduled specifically for him. The rain was coming down in sheets, but he wasn't hunched against it. He wasn't shivering. He was just standing there, facing my direction, and even through the darkness and the water streaking across my windshield, I could feel his eyes locked onto my car. I was about 3 miles outside of Clarkma, heading back from my mother's funeral. It had been a long, exhausting day, filled with condolences that felt hollow and casseroles I'd never eat. My sister had cried through the entire service. My father hadn't cried at all. I'd shot somewhere in between, numb and raw at the same time, like a nerve that had been exposed but couldn't quite register pain yet. I just wanted to get home, pour myself something strong, and try to sleep without dreaming. The highway was empty. It was nearly midnight, and the storm had chased everyone else indoors. When my headlights swept over him, he didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't raise his hand for a ride. He just watched my car approach, and something about that stillness made my stomach clench. I should have kept driving, but I didn't. I eased my foot off the gas and pulled onto the shoulder about 20 feet ahead of him. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it was the funeral, the reminder that life is fragile and we should help each other when we can. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was just exhaustion clouding my judgment. But I stopped, and I heard his footsteps approaching through the rain, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. When he opened the passenger door, the dome light flickered on, and I got my first clear look at him. He was older than I'd expected, maybe in his 50s, with silver hair slicked back from his face. He wore a dark suit that should have been soaked through, but looked oddly dry. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were a washed-out blue that seemed to reflect more light than they absorbed. He smiled at me, a small, knowing smile, and climbed into the seat. "Thank you, Michael," he said softly, closing the door behind him. I felt my heart skip. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer right away. He settled into the seat, adjusting his posture like he was getting comfortable for a long drive, and then he turned to look at me with that same gentle smile. "I know a lot about you," he said. His voice was calm, almost musical, like a therapist or a priest. "I know you've been carrying something heavy for a long time. I know you think nobody sees it, but I see it, Michael. I see all of it." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I think you've got me confused with someone else." "No," he said simply. "I don't." I put the car back in drive and pulled onto the highway, telling myself this was just a weird guy. Maybe mentally ill, maybe harmless. I'd drop him off at the next town and forget this ever happened. But my hands were shaking, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a terrible mistake. For the first few miles, he didn't say anything. He just sat there, hands folded in his lap, staring out the windshield at the rain. The silence felt thick, oppressive, like it had weight. I turned on the radio, hoping for some noise to fill the space between us, but all I got was static. I tried switching stations, scanning through the dial, but every channel was the same. White noise, nothing else. The storm's interfering with the signal, I said, more to myself than to him. "Is it?" he asked. I glanced over at him. He was still staring straight ahead, but there was something in his tone that made my skin crawl. Something amused, I turned the radio off. "You don't talk to God anymore," he said suddenly. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Matter of fact, he was commenting on the weather. "Excuse me?" "You used to," he continued, his voice still gentle. "When you were a child, you'd kneel beside your bed every night and pray. You prayed for your parents, you prayed for your little sister, you prayed for the dog you wanted, but never got." He paused, tilting his head slightly. "You even prayed for forgiveness once. Do you remember that?" I felt my chest tighten. I did remember. I was 12 years old. I'd stolen money from my mother's purse to buy a video game. $20. I'd felt so guilty I couldn't sleep, so I'd knelt beside my bed and begged God to forgive me, promising I'd never do it again. "How do you know that?" I whispered. "I know a lot of things," he said. "I know you stopped praying when you turned 16. I know you decided God wasn't listening, or maybe he wasn't there at all. I know you blamed him when your girlfriend left you, when your father got sick, when your business failed. You decided it was easier to believe in nothing than to believe in something that didn't answer." I wanted to tell him to shut up. I wanted to pull over and make him get out, but I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat and my foot stayed on the gas. "That's not unusual," he continued. "Most people stop praying eventually. They grow up, they get disillusioned. They start to see the world as it really is, and they realize that if there is a God, he's either indifferent or cruel." He turned to look at me, and his eyes were so pale they almost glowed in the darkness. "But Michael, you're different. You still want to believe. You just don't know how anymore." "I don't know who you are," I said, my voice shaking, "but I'm going to need you to stop talking." He smiled. "Of course, I apologize. I didn't mean to upset you." But he didn't stop. Not really. "Do you know what I find interesting?" he asked after a moment. "Scripture, the way people interpret it, the way they twist it to fit their own narratives. Take Psalm 23 for example. 'The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.' Beautiful, isn't it? Comforting. But people always forget the next part. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Makes me. Not guides me, not invites me. Makes me. Because sheep don't know what's good for them, Michael. They need to be controlled." I glanced at the dashboard clock. It read 11:47 p.m. I'd left my mother's house at 10:30. That was impossible. I should have been halfway home by now. "Or consider Job," he went on, his tone still calm, almost conversational. "A good man, a righteous man, and God allowed him to be tortured, his children killed, his wealth destroyed, his body covered in sores. And why? To win a bet, to prove a point to an adversary. That's what people forget, Michael. God doesn't owe you kindness. He doesn't owe you anything." "Stop," I said, my voice barely audible. "I'm just trying to help you understand." "Understand what?" He leaned back in his seat, his smile widening. "That faith is a gamble, and most people lose." The rain was getting heavier. The windshield wipers were working overtime, but I could barely see the road ahead. The headlights seemed dimmer than they should have been, and the white lines on the pavement kept blurring together. I tried to focus, tried to keep the car steady, but my hands were slick with sweat, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "I think we should talk about your mother," he said. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded slightly on the wet pavement before coming to a stop in the middle of the highway. I turned to him, my chest heaving, my vision blurring with tears. I hadn't realized her there. "Don't," I said. "Don't you dare talk about her." He looked at me with something that might have been pity. "She loved you very much, even at the end, when she couldn't remember your name, when she didn't recognize your face. Some part of her still knew you were there. That must have been hard for you, watching her fade like that, watching her become a stranger." I felt something break inside me. "Get out. You blamed yourself," he continued. He thought maybe if he'd visited more, she'd call more, she'd been a better son, she wouldn't have slipped away so fast. But that's not how it works, Michael. Disease doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about guilt. It just takes and takes until there's nothing left. Get out of my car, I screamed. He didn't move. He just sat there, watching me with those pale, unblinking eyes. I can't do that, he said quietly. Not yet. I reached for the door handle, ready to get out myself, to run into the rain and leave him there. But when I pulled the handle, nothing happened. The door didn't open. I tried again, yanking harder, but it was like the mechanism had fused shut. What did you do? I whispered. Nothing, he said. But I think you should keep driving. We're not finished yet. I looked out the windshield. The road ahead was empty, stretching into darkness. Behind us, nothing. No other cars. No lights. Just rain and night and the faint glow of my headlights barely cutting through the storm. I put the car back in drive. I didn't know what else to do. Who are you? I asked, my voice hoarse. He was silent for a long moment, and then he said, People usually decide that for me. We drove for what felt like hours, but the clock on the dashboard had stopped moving. It still read 11:47. The gas gauge hadn't changed either. The road kept stretching ahead, mile after mile, and I started to realize we weren't going anywhere. We were just moving through space, caught in some kind of loop, and the man beside me was watching me with that same calm, patient expression. Do you believe in judgment, Michael? He asked. I didn't answer. Most people do, he said. They believe that when they die, someone will weigh their actions. Someone will decide if they were good or bad, worthy or unworthy. They believe in a cosmic scales that measures every lie, every kindness, every sin. It's comforting in a way. It means their lives mattered. It means there's order to the universe. He paused, letting the silence stretch. But what if there isn't? He said. What if there's no one keeping score? What if you're just here, and then you're not, and nothing you did made any difference at all? Then why are you here? I asked, my voice cracking. If nothing matters, why are you in my car? Why are you saying all this? He smiled again, and this time there was something almost sad in it, because I wanted to see what you would do. What I would do. When you thought you were being tested, when you thought someone was watching, when you thought your choices mattered, he turned to look at me fully now, and his eyes were no longer pale. They were dark, bottomless, like staring into a well. Most people behave when they think they're being judged. They smile, they pray, they pretend to be good. But I wanted to see the real you, Michael, the one you hide from everyone else, the one you hide from yourself. I felt my blood run cold. What are you? That depends, he said. What do you think I am? I thought about the things he'd said, the way he knew my name, my past, my secrets, the way he quoted scripture and spoke about God like he knew him personally, the way the car doors wouldn't open and the clock had stopped and the road kept going on forever. Are you God? I whispered. He laughed. It was a soft, gentle sound, but it made my skin crawl. Most people call me that, he said, when they see something they can't explain, when they encounter something that feels bigger than themselves. They assign it divinity. It's easier that way, easier than accepting that the universe is full of things they'll never understand. So you're not God. I never said I was your God, he replied. The distinction hit me like a punch to the gut. You're God, not the God, not the creator, the shepherd, the judge, something else. Something that wore the idea of God like a mask. The headlights caught something up ahead, a road sign, green and reflective, coming up fast on the right side of the highway. I squinted, trying to read it through the rain. Memorial site, 500 feet, and below it smaller letters, McCarolyn Dreys, 1977, 2024, my name. my birth year, and a death date that was 3 days from now. I slammed on the brakes again, harder this time, and the car spun. The tires screamed against the wet pavement, and I felt the world tilt as we skidded sideways. I was dimly aware of the man beside me, still calm, still smiling, his hands folded in his lap like we were on a Sunday drive. When the car finally stopped, we were facing the wrong direction. The headlights pointed back the way we'd come, illuminating nothing but empty road and rain. "What is this?" I shouted. "What the hell is this?" "A choice," he said simply. "What choice?" I don't understand. He turned to look at me, and his face had changed. It was still human, still familiar, but there was something wrong with it now. The features were too sharp, the angles too precise, like a painting that was almost perfect, but just slightly off. "You're going to die, Michael," he said. 3 days from now, in a car accident on this exact stretch of highway. You'll lose control in the rain, just like you almost did tonight. You'll hit the guardrail at 70 miles per hour, and your car will roll 6 times before coming to rest upside down in a ditch. You'll be conscious for about 2 minutes, long enough to feel your ribs puncture your lungs, long enough to taste blood in your mouth and feel the cold seeping into your bones, and then you'll die, alone, in the dark, with no one around to hear you scream. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was being crushed, and black spots danced at the edges of my vision. "But," he continued, "you don't have to die that way. You can change it. You can make different choices. You can stay off this highway. You can drive slower. You can pay attention." He leaned closer, and I could smell something sour on his breath, like rotting fruit. "Or you can accept that some things are inevitable, that no matter what you do, no matter how careful you are, the universe has already decided your fate." "Why are you telling me this?" I gasped. "Because I wanted to see what you'd do with the knowledge," he said. "Would you fight it? Would you try to change your destiny? Or would you give up, accept that you're powerless, and let it happen?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw something that made my blood freeze. Behind his eyes, there was nothing. No soul, no consciousness, no humanity. Just a vast, empty darkness that went on forever. "You're not here to help me," I said. "No," he agreed. "I'm not." "Then why?" He smiled one last time, and his teeth were too white, too perfect. "Because I was curious. Because I wanted to see how you react when you thought you were being watched by something greater. Because I wanted to see if you'd be good out of genuine kindness or out of fear of punishment." He paused. "And now I know." The car started moving again, even though my foot wasn't on the gas. I grabbed the steering wheel, trying to regain control, but it was locked in place. We were accelerating, picking up speed, heading straight for the guardrail. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no. So many of you think judgment comes from above," he said, his voice calm as ever. "You think there's a plan, a purpose, a reason for everything. But sometimes, Michael, things just happen. And sometimes things like me just want to watch." The guardrail was rushing toward us, 50 feet, 40, 30. I closed my eyes and prayed. For the first time in years, I prayed. Not to God, not to anyone specific, just a desperate plea thrown out into the void. "Please, please let me wake up. Please let this be a dream." The impact was deafening. Metal shrieked and glass shattered, and I felt my body thrown forward against the seatbelt with enough force to snap my ribs. The airbag deployed, slamming into my face, and then we were tumbling. Over and over, the world spinning, the sound of crunching metal and my own screams filling my ears, and then it stopped. Silence. I was hanging upside down, held in place by the seatbelt. Blood was dripping from somewhere on my head, running down into my eyes. I could taste copper in my mouth. My chest hurt so badly I could barely draw breath, and when I tried to move, pain shot through every part of my body. The passenger seat was empty. He was gone. I don't know how long I hung there before someone found me. It felt like hours, but it might have been minutes. A truck driver, I think. He called 911, and eventually I heard sirens. I remember hands pulling me from the wreckage, voices telling me to stay still, to stay awake. I remember the ambulance ride, the bright lights of the emergency room, doctors and nurses hovering over me with concerned faces. I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks now. 3 broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, a severe concussion, and more bruises than I can count. They tell me I'm lucky to be alive. They tell me the car was totaled, that I should have died on impact. They ask me what happened, and I tell them I lost control in the rain. I don't mention the passenger. I don't mention the man in the dark suit who knew my name and spoke about God and told me when I was going to die, because who would believe me? But I know what I saw. I know what happened. And I know that he was right about one thing. The crash happened 3 days after my mother's funeral, exactly when he said it would. Exactly where he said it would. I should have died. The memorial sign I saw that night, it's real. I checked. It's been there for years, marking the spot where someone else named Michael Graves died in 1994. Different person, same name, same stretch of highway. And I keep thinking about what he said, that he wanted to see what I'd do when I thought I was being watched, that he wanted to see if I'd be good out of genuine kindness or out of fear. I don't know what I am. I don't know if I passed his test or failed it. I don't know if he was real or if he was a hallucination, some kind of stress-induced psychotic break triggered by grief and exhaustion. But I know this. I still don't pray, even after everything. I still don't. Because if that thing was God, if that empty, curious, cruel thing was what's watching us, then I don't want its attention. I don't want to be seen by something that treats human suffering like an experiment. I don't want to be judged by something that has no mercy, no compassion, no love. And if it wasn't God, if it was something else wearing God's face, then that's even worse, because it means we're not alone out here. It means there are things in the darkness that are watching us, studying us, testing us for reasons we'll never understand. Either way, I'm terrified. I'm being discharged tomorrow. They say I'm well enough to go home, though I'll need physical therapy for months. My sister is coming to pick me up. She doesn't know about the passenger. She doesn't know about the memorial sign, or the stopped clock, or the things he said. I don't think I'll ever tell her. But I know I'm never driving that highway again. I know I'm never picking up another hitchhiker. And I know that when I'm alone in the dark, when I hear footsteps in the hallway or see shadows move in the corner of my eye, I'll remember his face, his smile, his empty eyes, and I'll wonder if he's still watching, if he's still curious, if he's still waiting to see what I'll do next. Because the worst part, the part that keeps me awake at night, is this. He never said the test was over. He never said I passed. He just left me here, alive and broken and afraid, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for the moment when I let my guard down, when I stop being afraid, when I start to believe I'm safe. That's when he'll come back. I know it, and next time I don't think I'll survive. So I'm writing this down. I'm telling my story, even though I know how it sounds, even though I know people will think I'm crazy. Because if something happens to me, if I end up dead at another accident, or if I just disappear one day, I want someone to know the truth. There are things out there that pretend to be divine, things that wear the shape of God and speak with his voice and claim his authority. But they're not holy, they're not merciful, they're not even evil in the way we understand evil. They're just curious, and that's so much worse, because evil can be fought, evil can be resisted. Evil has rules, motivations, weaknesses, but curiosity is infinite. Curiosity never stops. Curiosity will keep testing and prodding and pushing until it gets what it wants. And what it wants is to see how we break. I'm afraid I'm gonna find out. I'm afraid I already have. The fluorescent lights are buzzing again. They've been doing that all night. Buzzing like insects, like something alive trapped in the fixtures, trying to get out. The nurses say it's just old wiring, that maintenance will fix it tomorrow. But I hear footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate, getting closer. And I know it's not the nurses. I know who it is. He's come back. He's come back. And this time, I don't think there's anywhere left to run.